let's gather up the energy we have for the last plenary session for today. It's on safeguarding information integrity during elections. Don't you want to have this conversation about elections? We know that elections in this part of the world can be a bit, dramatic, with people being split into different sides on results and outcomes. Now, to moderate this particular session, we have Ajibola Amzat, Africa Editor, Center for Collaborative Investigative Journalism, CCIJ. Thank you so much. And also the members of the panel are Hamadou Tidiane, founder and director, E-jicom. Oh, okay. Hamadou Tidiane, are you here? We also have Samuel Folorunsho, Information Technology Manager at YIAGA Africa. Samuel Folorunsho, please make your way up on stage. We have Rachelle Faust, Program Officer, Democracy and Technology, National Democratic Institute, NDI. And we also have on this panel Dr. Imurana Mohammed, Director of Programs, National Commission for Civic Education, Ghana. Also, we have Barrister Festus Okoye, former National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee, INEC. And we also, okay, that's it. I was just about to call the person that will say closing remarks. All right, so I'm looking forward to this particular panel session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ajibola Hamzat, and I'm the African editor for Center for Collaborative Investigative Journalism. And I'm very honored to have this honorable gentleman. There's supposed to be a lady.
My brother, Rachelle.
Because on my list, I have a lady, actually.
Yeah, somebody.
She's joining virtually. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's online. Okay, great. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So the topic we're going to be addressing this evening is safeguarding information integrity during election in Africa. And for those of you who are in Nigeria in 2014-2015, you probably recall that Cambridge Analytica, a defunct company in the UK, tried to compromise the Nigerian election by engaging in the disinformation campaign that tried to demarket the candidate Mohammed Buhari, saying then that if he becomes the president, all Nigerians are going to be under Sharia law and women are going to be sent to Powder. That was about 8-9 years ago. I don't think all women are still in Powder today. But that was the information that was being circulated on Facebook and other social media at that time. Just another 4 years after that, it was also being described as Jibril of Sudan, that there was a ghost in the Asarok, and that the president we had was not a president. So that was the kind of misinformation that we witnessed during the election in 2015, 2019, and it didn't stop in 2023. I think it was Dubawa that did a report that shows that more than 2 million bots were actually deployed in 2023 election, sharing all kinds of information that were false, that were misleading. It is not only in Nigeria. In Ghana election is going to happen in the next couple of weeks, I think December 5. And the report coming from Ghana is already showing that AI-powered bot is being deployed to share information that are false, that are untrue in Ghana. In South Africa, there's a particular family called Gupta family. Gupta's family, between 2017 and 2019, engaged a British company called, I think, Bolinga or something, I forgot their name now, to share all kinds of misinformation to compromise the South African election. If you go through different African countries, the story is the same. So what we are seeing at the moment is that during election time, the information environment is degraded. through the efforts of those ones who are trying to compromise the election and distort our reality. And this is the issue that this panel is going to be addressing today. I'm going to be starting perhaps with Hamad Tidiane. By the way, Hamadou and I met a couple of, last year in South Africa, where he delivered a very brilliant lectures. And we are very honored to have you here, Hamadou. So tell us, what do you consider to be the unique patterns of disinformation that happens in Senegal? And I will take the question to every other person because I think that all of us, we are from different parts of from Africa, except the lady online who is from the US, if I'm correct. So Hamad, you start Senegal. What are the patterns of disinformation that you saw in the last few years in Senegal?
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me in this interesting panel about disinformation and elections. Well, when you're talking about pattern, maybe we should talk about patterns because there are many. One interesting thing that we saw during previous elections, and why I'm putting that example on top, is hijacking of newspapers. Just before coming here, we were working on it as a case study, whereby people would take genuine newspapers, transform the cover page, provide information that is fake. You would think that you are reading, I don't know if I take a newspaper here
Vanguard,
that you know, Vanguard or Premium Times or whichever newspaper you take, you think you are reading a genuine newspaper while you are reading a fake. This one pattern we saw. The other thing we have is, of course, all the source disinformation that circulate on social media, attributing false statements to political leaders, circulating false information through social media. At times, it's done at a scale at which you would think it's genuine or you would think it has a source, while it has not. I can remember, I think it was not the election we just went through, but the previous one, some people were arrested because they created groups on WhatsApp, the role of which was specifically to disseminate fake information. I mean, there are other cases. I don't know, for the sake of time, maybe I'll stop on those two. And then if I have the opportunity, we can discuss other.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you, Hamadou, but I want to also want that Rachelle Faust, who is online, to understand that she's around. Can you hear us first? Okay, great. I can see you now. Can you hear me? Can you hear me loud and clear? It looks like Faust is struggling to hear us.
Sorry, I can hear you. The host had to unmute me. Can you hear me okay?
Okay, great. We can hear you very well now. So the question I ask Hamadou is to talk to the pattern of information disorder in Senegal. And I would like to also speak to what you saw in the United States.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I can speak formally on what we saw in the United States. So I represent the National Democratic Institute, and though we are based in the United States, we do not work in the country. We only work outside of the United States in most regions. But I think some of the patterns that have been seen in Africa are exemplary of what we've seen globally. I think we've seen both domestically driven information as well as kind of foreign malign information manipulation. I think there are a lot of parallels that we can see between Russia's efforts to distort information space in both Africa as well as Eurasia and other regions.
Yeah, we have a bit of challenge with your audio here. I don't know if you also struggle to hear us very well, but we struggle to hear you. Oh, she's speaking.
Recording in progress.
Okay, you know what? Okay, yeah, I really struggle to hear you, but I'm going to come back to you. So let me go to Ghana now. Dr. Imurana Mohammed, you are from Ghana. So what's the Ghanaian experience that you have to share with us?
Thank you very much. Let me also, first of all, thank the organizers of this program for the opportunity being created for us from Ghana to speak. As you observed, we have less than 2 weeks to go to our general elections. And the year 2024, according to the latest Global Democracy Index, is an election bonanza year, because you have about more than half of the world's population voting in one election or the other, and Ghana is no exception. The case of Ghana becomes crucial because in Ghana, general elections are closely contested. We have 2 parties that have dominated our political space since we returned to democracy in 1992. And in this year's election, the issue of disinformation, misinformation becomes very crucial. We all understand post-COVID and how the social media space has broadened. And for my commission, National Commission for Civic Education, one of the issues we flag for our public education is actually misinformation and disinformation and how it can affect the electioneering process. But you're talking about patterns. In terms of pattern, Ghana, for example, the WhatsApp is the biggest space where our social media users are. And in that space, you wake up every day and there are posts from others. People share messages that are not verifiable. So for my institution, that has been an area for our civic educational engagement. But in our efforts, there are pitfalls. For the past 1 week, our institution has been in the media because of misreporting, if I may put it so. A lot of activities that we do, we thought that by last week, we are winding up on a lot of our community engagements and probably will be going on to do some street campaigns on how people could engage. You know, the northern part of our country shares border with Burkina Faso, and you've heard of the insurgency in Burkina Faso. And we engage the young persons in those areas, right, on how we can prevent the spillover of what is happening. The next day, after one of our engagement, there is a report. For the first time, our commission gets a front page space, right, in a newspaper, saying that our commission has picked hints on insurgents coming to attack Ghana during the elections. And my boss could not sleep that day because you have the police service, you have the Bureau of National Investigation, you have our national security apparatus. All these institutions could not pick signal on spillover of violent extremist activities from Burkina Faso. But it is Ghana, National Commission for Civic Education, that has done that. So these are some of the patterns in mainstream media, some aspects of misreporting, and also in social media. The political parties see the social media space as a place that you can attack each other. It happens even within internal party struggles. They use the social media space to sort of attack each other. And as Africa, religion is so pervasive. You have men of God and sometimes women of God giving prophecies. they give prophecies. This party is going to win.
Recording in progress.
God has revealed to me that this man is going to win by this margin. How do we engage Dubawa to verify such information?
Okay, and I'm going to stop you here.
So these are some of the patterns that we have and the challenges thereof.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed. The experience you just shared is not so much different from the experience we had in Nigeria. We have so many prophecies around who is going to win and who is not going to win election in Nigeria as well. So I can tell you that we are in the same boat. But before I come to you, Samuel, let me talk to Barrister Festus Okoye first. You were the INEC man because you're no longer in the INEC. And you were at the forefront of speaking for the election matters during that time. I'd like you to also talk to the patterns, the unique patterns of disinformation that you saw when you were at the INEC.
Well, thank you so much. for me, as a lawyer, managing information for an electoral management body, the greatest challenge I faced and the greatest issues on the table were the fact that there were so many people running commentaries on elections and election matters who have not, even for one day, seen the constitutive legal instruments for the conduct of elections. They have never read them before. They have never seen them. They don't even know some of the functions of some of the technological innovations introduced by the electoral management body, but they were running commentaries on this. The second issue is that it seems to me, I'm not a journalist, that rumor mongering tries better. So when people send out rumors or when people spread rumors, the next thing you see, they say, oh, hey, we've seen this. Just wait, they will soon deny it. So you are now put on the defensive. You know that what has been put out there is not true. But they have already put a screen that you are going to deny it. And when you deny it, they say, didn't we tell you that they are going to deny it? So that is the second challenge. The third challenge for me as an individual, there was one day I put out some information and there was so much buzz on the social media. And then when I went to the social media, somebody had written, he said, please, that thing Barrister Okoye posted, I didn't see it. Please, can you post it? But I know that whatever he posted must be useless because he can never say anything right. So he has not seen what I posted, but he had already made up his mind, condemned whatever I said, and said it was going to be rubbish. So that was the type of things we were seeing on the social media. And then I also saw that the mainstream media, the orthodox media, were also pandering to the breaking news syndrome because those on the social media tried to break news as quickly as possible. The mainstream media now joined the issue of breaking news without verifying certain things. I was addressing a press conference. I saw a journalist that I know very well, who is a very good friend of mine. He came late, but he had already broken the news of the press conference I was addressing and some of the issues I was raising. He had not arrived. I saw when he arrived. And when he arrived, I had not even gone halfway in my press conference, but he had put out what he believed I was saying.
And you think it was false? And
it was false. And when I confronted him, he said he was engaged in interpretative journalism. You know, so these were
okay.
These were some of the challenges I had, and as somebody managing information who is not a journalist, it became very, very difficult for me to decipher when a journalist is interpreting and reinterpreting, and when he's engaging in falsehood. So it's a very, very difficult situation and a very, very treacherous area.
Anyway, I hope we're going to have some time to actually unpack some of the issues you just raised now. But before we get to that point, Folorunsho, YIAGA probably was one of the groups that deployed the largest numbers of observers during the election. What lesson did you learn on the field with regards to the spread of disinformation that Barrister Okoye talked about?
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much, CGID, for having me. So I would like to provide a contextual analysis to what disinformation really is, because on the surface, we like to look at disinformation as a political party battle, people fighting themselves, trying to mudsling each other. But what that is actually doing to our democracy is the democratization of our nations and of the continent. Because we're now slowly beginning to see voter apathy has been declining in the past, because one of the biggest challenge of disinformation is voter apathy. We are slowly losing democracy. We are slowly losing our democracy. So you will go to the field, for instance, YIAGA Africa, we just coming from Ondo, and we deployed 324 observers, 300 of them being stationary observers, and 24 of them being roving. But one of the strategies we've learned to engage is long-term observation, because we like to see election as a full life cycle. So we start early to begin to see these trends so we can mitigate them on time. But the trend is we see politicians, for their own selfish interest, engaging in these things and not ignoring the consequences, because the consequences is what I've just mentioned. Because you now see people already, like Barrister Okoye said and what my other panelists said, you see people already made up their minds on who is already going to win an election that has not been conducted. Just because someone has said, don't worry now, it's not INEC. INEC has already decided who will win. These are the dangers of what we are seeing now, because we are now slowly beginning to just conduct election for the conduct of election's sake, not because it is now a fair game for people to play in anymore.
So if I get you right now, you're saying that disinformation has a way of trying to cause people not to vote?
Exactly.
Okay, let me talk to Hamadou. Do you have an example of that kind of situations in Senegal where disinformation impact very directly the outcome of the election?
Well, it would be difficult to say the link, but there's one case where you have this strong coalition which could have made a good result, but because of one opponent said, okay, these guys are being labeled as opposition, but they're being funded by the party in power, by the ruling party, their result in the elections was catastrophic. I mean, it's very difficult. It's empirical observation. It's difficult to say if there's no study to prove it. But if you see what that coalition was, who was in that coalition, you see what their result is, and you compare it, I mean, you link it to the statement that was made against them. I believe that's one case where you can say it has impact on election. And regardless of that specific case, let us remember information plays on people's minds. We're working on opinion. I mean, it might take time. It's what you perceive. In one of our local languages in Senegal, people say, the devil does not tell the truth. I'm trying to translate it live. It may be difficult, but it can have some negative impact. The minute I say, this guy is a liar, and I go, I don't need to add anything. Some people who don't know him might consider he is a liar, whether it is truth or not. So labeling opponents, I think, have some real impact on elections. Certain information about certain very critical, sensitive issues. If you say this political party is supporting, let us say in our context, LGBTQ in a country where everyone is opposed to it, if you say this one does not believe in our beliefs, or this one is an instrument of colonial France, or things like that. I mean, those are statements that are so strong that people would take into consideration. Now, maybe what would be interesting is to see what the effect is, but that would require serious studies that we have not done, unfortunately. But the few focus groups that we did is definitely an impact. What the level is, maybe, is what remains to be assessed.
Yeah, and you're very right, because even disinformation scholarship has shown that it's always very difficult to link the impact and the spread of disinformation. You cannot actually say this is how this is happening. There are several cases of studies in outside Africa. But let me come to Rachelle. Rachelle, are you there? Can you hear us now? Okay, great. So I'd like to talk to you about the AI, the use of AI tool in generating disinformation. You have been, tracking this for a while now. Can you talk to us more about that? How does it impact the spread of disinformation during election?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. So yeah, we have been tracking the use of artificial intelligence to spread disinformation in contexts around the world, including in Africa. And while I think we have seen some examples of AI-generated videos and images and other content being spread, I think the general consensus after this significant year of elections is that it hasn't been quite as much of a problem as we expected it to be. We, meaning kind of the global community of organizations and experts tracking these things. So some of the examples that we saw were, videos spreading in different contexts. So I think there were a couple of videos of American celebrities and politicians endorsing particular candidates that happened in both South Africa and Nigeria. But really what we saw is that sort of shallow fakes and simpler text and photo manipulation is still the most common form of content manipulation. So I think we do need to keep focusing on that. And then one of the other kind of emerging concerns around AI is just generally the erosion of trust in information. So I think as people become more aware of this type of manipulation, they're becoming increasingly skeptical of everything that they see online. Particularly because we've also seen evidence of politicians claiming that videos of them kind of doing problematic things or saying problematic things are AI manipulated when actually they're not. So we saw that with the former Nigeria state governor. He was captured on video receiving bribes or having a conversation about that and claimed that the video was manipulated. But really it wasn't. So I think in general, one of those significant concerns is just the erosion of trust and not being able to tell what content is real and what content is not.
Thank you very much, Rachelle. I'll come back to you now, Dr. Mohammed, because you have been on the checking point of disinformation in Ghana. So I would like to find out, looking ahead in the Ghana election, so what steps should stakeholders, such as politicians, tech companies, and public take to prevent the spread of disinformation in Ghana election?
I think from several viewpoints. The first point is that Ghana has, enormous legal framework for, safeguarding information. The Constitution of the Republic of Ghana actually prescribes freedom of information. That has been backed by the Right to Information Act. We have the Cyber Security Act. But these are frameworks that should be given expression by human beings. And in the process, the institutions that should, ensure that the legal arrangement work, sometimes there are gaps in the way they carry out their activities, stemming from the fact that with the emergence and the spread of social media, things are so fluid that you could hardly, track and punish. But within those difficulties, and I think the real profession that can actually help us sort of bridge this gap between what should be right and what we should not uphold is journalism. I think journalists should, in the midst of trying to probably earn a living, right, we should uphold seriously professional ethics and standards. And I think when we do that, we will be the sort of vanguards that could protect our elections and our systems from misinformation and disinformation. For instance, as we are going, I just want to give you one example. We are a state institution. We do education on, voting procedures and so on and so forth. And we've carried out these education
Recording in progress.
for a very long time. Just last week, there is somebody who sat in a media house that belongs to one of the political parties and says that the elections in Ghana are going to take place on 2 days. On the first day, when you go, he says they should vote for his preferred candidate on the first day. And then the second day is for the other candidates, which is palpable lies because the elections are taking place on the same day, presidential and parliamentary. And this is a complete rollback to the work that we have been doing. And this is a media house that has so much viewership and listenership, if you like. And so I think journalists should actually be in the forefront of checking themselves and also upholding professional ethics and then standards.
And it's very interesting that the accusing finger is now pointing at directions of journalists. And I'm curious because, I mean, Professor who was here a couple of hours ago was talking about who actually is a journalist, what counts as journalism. So I wonder whether we are actually talking to journalists in the real sense of it, or we're talking to some pretenders who describe themselves as journalists. But I'll come to Barrister Okoye, because I don't think journalists are only the people that you observed sharing disinformation during election. Did any one of you see any patterns of foreign influence in the disinformation that happened in your election?
Well, if you are talking about foreign influence, you know that in Sudan, for instance, you don't even know the number of Nigerians who are in Sudan. During elections, almost every Nigerian who resides outside the country is somehow interested in the Nigerian elections, and they tend to influence elections. But you know, one thing is fundamental, and that's the question you asked. Who is a journalist? I think that combating disinformation and misinformation should be a multi-stakeholder venture. And the mainstream media must rise up to the occasion. When people spread disinformation on the social media, and you, who is in the orthodox media or the mainstream media, you come to that person's defense, knowing that what is being spread is false information. It also creates its own patterns and also creates its own challenges. So I think that one of the biggest challenges we have, and one of the biggest things we must do, is that whether you are in this mainstream media, whether you are outside the mainstream media, you must understand the constitutive legal instruments for the conduct of elections. Secondly, if you don't know, why not stay away? Because, for instance, reporting election petition tribunals is not for everybody. It involves specialization, because even as lawyers, we say that election petitions are sui generis, meaning they are not criminal matters, they are not civil matters. They are in a class of their own. And even those of us who are lawyers have difficulty sometimes understanding the mechanisms and patterns of election petition adjudication. But you see somebody who does not know anything about elections running commentaries on what is going on in the Supreme Court. The person is outside the Supreme Court. Arguments are going on inside, and the person is running commentaries on what is going on inside, and the person is not inside. So I think that training is key, is fundamental. Specialization is also fundamental. The era of being jack of all trades is far gone. If you must report elections, come and study elections. Know what the Independent National Electoral Commission does. Understand what is voting. Understand the process of registering political parties and so on and so forth. So it demands specialization. I think that one of the things we must do, if we must move forward, is to try to understand elections and the electoral process. And the mainstream media has a role to play in this. And the Nigerian Union of Journalists, the Guild of Editors, and so on, also have a huge role to play in making sure that you don't send out journalists to go and cover elections when in actual fact they don't know anything about elections. They don't know the work of a presiding officer. They don't know the work of a collation officer. They don't know anything about elections. Even where they're going to cover elections, they don't know the number of registered voters. They don't know the number of political parties contesting elections. It becomes a huge challenge. So I think that journalists have a huge role to play. The Electoral Management Body also has a huge role to play, because sometimes people who pose as journalists get employed in the Electoral Management Body. They are posted to voter education and publicity, and they go there and they just sit down, and things are happening. They don't know what to do. They don't even know they come online. If you ask them to go on television, they run away.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Barrister Okoye. I have to stop you now because I want Samuel to also say something, because he was talking about the roles of different bodies now, and I'm wondering, YIAGA, what role should you play in the case of lack of capacity and miscommunication and disinformation that happen.
Okay, thank you. It's unfortunate that we don't have enough time for this session. Next time, we should flip the script and put it up first. Because, yes, it's true. Because one of the things that we need to do as civil society organizations and media, firstly, is to start communicating differently. Because the generation of Nigerians or Africans that are propagating this information, that just take it and retweet, we are not communicating to them. Most of the election statements we release now are too technical. They don't read it.
I need you to speak for 30 more seconds. And
okay.
Then we end it.
So because there's a lot to do. So in terms of misinformation and all those platforms that this is happening, we need to start bringing big techs into the room. Because look at Facebook, Meta, for instance, as a trusted partner network, that they've been able to use this to mitigate disinformation on their platforms. We've seen Twitter come on board with community notes, but we've not started seeing a lot of those features being used in our own context. So we need to bring big tech into the room. Just, no, I want more time.
Because I want Rachelle to have the last word. So Rachelle, please, I need you to also talk to what do you think NDI role should be in the whole of this conversation.
Thank you. One thing that NDI believes is that one organization working alone is not nearly as effective as organizations working together to combat information manipulation during elections and otherwise. So we've positioned ourselves as somewhat of a convener of groups working on these issues. So we have our Global Infotegrity Network, which is a network of over 700 organizations and individuals that are working to counter information manipulation, as well as on kind of adjacent topics like civic technology and digital security. So if you're not a part of that network, I invite you to reach out to me, and we're happy to help you participate. But really what that's meant to do is facilitate cross-regional learning and information sharing, and to facilitate a space for groups working on these issues to ask questions. So we just very recently had a great example of that in one of our communication channels, where a network member from Nigeria connected with someone from Ethiopia about this pattern of activists and influencers being incorrectly reported as deceased by actors who are trying to silence them. So that puts their social media accounts into a memorialization state so that they can no longer use them. And that was a really great example of our members in that network collaborating. And one of the members has a direct contact at Meta, and so they're planning to escalate that together. So I really think that's something that we see as a really vital resource in this work, is just to facilitate that opportunity for collaboration and information sharing.
Thank you very much, Rachelle, Faust. And on this note, I want to thank all the panelists, starting from Barrister Festus Okoye, the former National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voters Education Committee, INEC. Thank you very much, Barrister. And also to you, Dr. Imurana Mohammed. Dr. Mohammed is Director of Programs, National Commission for Civic Education, Ghana. Thank you very much, Doctor. And of course to you, Samuel Folorunsho, YIAGA Africa. Thank you very much. And to you, my friend, Hamadou Tidiane, founder, West News. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll just quickly take pictures, as is our practice. This is by no means the end to this conversation. I think that this is a very important conversation, and it should continue after this. And don't forget the action points. We're journalists, so I know we're taking notes. So we'll go home, go to our organizations, and ensure that some of these things are implemented. So please, if you could rise so we could take pictures quickly. How many of us are happy to see Mr. Festus Okoye again? We've missed him, right? You said? We've missed him, right? Yes, we have. Please, one more time, let's put our hands together for our moderator and the speakers. They've dealt with the subject, safeguarding information integrity during elections in Africa, so well. Thank you so much.